Councillor Cumbers, just to confirm, we are now live streaming on YouTube. Before you start the meeting, I just thought I'd let you know that we are still expecting Jodie Archer. She's just having some technical issues, but she will be joining in the next couple of minutes.
Thank you, Natasha. Did you want to remind members about the mute and unmuting?
Yes, if you would like, members, just so that you're aware that you will be able to unmute yourselves, but we will keep you on mute whilst others are speaking. So just to be aware of that, but you are able to unmute yourselves.
Thank you.
I'm trying to mute myself.
Are we ready to start?
Yes, it's now 6:30.
Thank you and welcome to you all to this meeting on the Tuesday, the 3rd of November. I'm Councillor Pat Cumbers and I chair Scrutiny Committee. I confirm that the following members are present and participating in this remote meeting. Councillor Rob Bindloss, Councillor Ronan Brown, Councillor Robert Child, Councillor Jean Douglas, Councillor Chris Fisher, Councillor Elaine Holmes and Councillor Jacob Wilkinson. We also have the following councillors in attendance. That's Councillor Joe Orson, Leader of the Council, and Councillor Alan Pearson, the Portfolio Holder for Housing and Communities. And we have the following council officers in attendance. Monitoring Officer Adele Wiley, Director for Housing and Communities Andrew Cotton, Jodie Archer we're waiting for, aren't we? Housing Asset Manager Julie Martin, and also officers from the Democratic Services team. We have no external participants in attendance. The meeting is being held in public and we welcome those members of the public who have joined us. Any member participating by remote link who declares an interest in any item of business in terms which requires them to leave the room must ensure that they cannot be seen or heard during the agenda item. This shall be confirmed by Democratic Services. This member of staff will confirm to the remote member when they may rejoin the meeting. Should any aspect of the conference link fail during this meeting, I will call a short adjournment of up to 5 minutes to determine whether the link can quickly be re-established. If the link cannot be re-established, the meeting shall be adjourned to a later date. In the event of link failure for individual members, the remote member or members will be deemed to have left the meeting at the point of failure of the equipment. And if the link cannot be re-established before the end of the meeting, then the presumption will be that the meeting should continue to deal with the item, providing that the meeting remains quorate. Should the meeting no longer be quorate, the meeting shall be adjourned and any remaining items of business will be deferred. If the individual member's link is successfully re-established, then the remote member will be deemed to have returned at the point of re-establishment. I would ask members to indicate their wish to speak by raising their hand using the raise hand tool on Zoom. I will then invite each member in turn to make their contribution to the debate. Before proceeding to any vote, I will ensure that all members and officers have no further comments by confirming with the technical host that no hands are raised. I will ask each member to indicate when asked whether they are voting for, against, or abstaining. This will be recorded by the Democratic Services officer who will confirm the outcome of the vote. Any member who's been absent from the debate on a particular item due to link failure must abstain from the vote on that item. So now we go on to the agenda and apologies for absence. I believe then we've got Councillors Smedley and Evans. No more apologies, are there?
No, just those two, Councillor Cumbers.
Thank you. Then we go on to the minutes of the meeting on September the 1st. I'd like to move the vote on those minutes if someone would like to second me.
Yeah, I'll second you, Chair.
Did you catch that, Natasha?
Yes, I think that was Councillor Bindloss indicating.
Thank you very much. So will you ask members now to indicate when asked whether they are voting for, against or abstaining?
Yes, that's fine. Members, if you want to unmute yourselves, and I'll just run through. Councillor Cumbers?
Yes, please. Thank you. I'm not first, am I?
Councillor Bindloss?
For.
Councillor Brown?
For.
Councillor Child?
For.
Councillor Douglas?
For.
Councillor Fisher?
For.
Councillor Holmes?
For.
And Councillor Wilkinson?
For.
Okay, that's unanimously in favour.
You're on mute, Pat.
Councillor Cumbers, it's showing that you're on mute currently.
Now can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you, Councillor Cumbers.
I'm so sorry. Yeah. I'll go back. Sorry. Scrutiny's work plan outlines the areas of work which we expect to scrutinise during the remainder of the civic year. Since the last meeting in September, there have been some changes to the dates for specific items. These changes are recorded on the most recent version of the work plan, which you have before you. You also have a copy of the Cabinet Forward Plan, which shows key decisions which are due to be made by Cabinet over the next 3 months. Would anyone wish to comment on any item in the work plan or the Cabinet Forward Plan? Are there any hands up?
Councillor Child has indicated he would like to speak. Councillor Cumbers?
Right, yes. Can you go ahead, please, Bob?
Yeah, sure. The Gadsby neighbourhood plan. I said I had no objections, and I believe the portfolio holder for growth and prosperity, the deputy leader, also had no objections. Yet it's still open. We have been told that it is now waiting a referendum in May. So maybe that that needs to be checked and updated.
Has that been noted?
Councillor Cumbers, do you mind if I just come in there?
Yeah, yes.
Councillor Child, my understanding is that is now actually approved and
Yes.
that is been recorded online, but I will just check that for you and I will come back to you and confirm that that is correct. But that's my understanding, is that that decision has now been approved. And yes, you're quite right, it is a waiting referendum, but the decision that was on the forward plan has been approved by the portfolio holder.
Yeah, that is right. You needn't come back to me, Natasha.
Thank you.
It's fine. I don't know whether it's an opportune time, Chair, and please tell me if it's not, but approximately 12 months ago, the lottery was on the work plan and was progressed. Is this the right time to get an update from yourselves?
Well, I trust you received my emailed update.
Yeah, I got that, where there was an increase of 10.
Yes, a net increase, yes.
When do you anticipate this coming for discussion, or maybe it's the right time? I don't know.
No, it's due to come back to scrutiny in June of next year.
Right.
The full discussion, but what I have been suggesting to Natasha, that perhaps we can ask for a monthly update on the numbers, because I think it's the numbers as much as anything that we're interested in, because the numbers, they indicate the income and the interest generally in the lottery. And does that wouldn't need to go on our work plan, would it, Natasha? And a monthly update?
No, can I suggest, Councillor Cumbers, that yes, you're quite right. There is an update that's scheduled on the on your scrutiny work plan for June 2021. That was a year, I think, in advance after the cabinet decision, which is what was agreed. If you wanted a monthly update of the figures, I would suggest that you sent that request through the portfolio holder, and she would send that on to the relevant officer to provide those figures.
I shall do that then. Are you satisfied with that, Councillor Child? Or
Yes,
would you like more information?
I'm more than satisfied, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. It's I mean, it's COVID which has delayed this matter so much. But no, I think we've all had concerns, but at least now we know that it's going up. The numbers are going up, however slowly.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks. Any more questions, Natasha? Any more arms up? Hands up?
Councillor Holmes is indicating that she would like to speak.
Elaine, would you like to say something?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was muted. Yeah, it's not good enough, this lottery thing. It's never, ever, ever in its life going to work. It can't work. And I honestly, I think we owe it to the people of Melton and Borough. You know, it's got to be knocked on the head, hasn't it? And you know, you can say it goes up by 10, but it's just, it always has been a nonsense. I could never see it working, and I didn't think it would, and I don't think it is. And so, really, we just don't want to see numbers go up. We want to know the finance all the time, because, you know, every month, I think you're quite right. If we know financially where we're going with this, personally. Anyway, that's my feeling. All right.
No, I agree with that. I agree with you. I think this has been of enormous concern to members. You know, I really do. It seems such a lot of money, you know, and well, records so far show that it's cost the taxpayer a lot of money.
Yeah.
But there is a lot of good can come out of it. And in the end, it was a cabinet decision in June that it should be allowed to continue until, you know, for at least for another year. So I don't, and of course, in the end, they'd had the final decision anyway. I don't know, Natasha, if Elaine wants to suggest something different, can she?
Councillor Cummins, I think because we haven't got the portfolio holder here to answer, because obviously that's her area of responsibility, I think that any request needs to go through her, and obviously then you can agree a way forward in terms of what information you want. The only thing that I would say at the moment is that obviously officer time has been diverted, and particularly at the moment now we've got new restrictions in place, and also that might mean, and you quite rightly pointed this out, that some of the recommendations that were put forward that were approved by cabinet, that were given 12 months to come into effect, might take slightly longer for us to see the outcomes because of COVID, you know, getting in the way of that. So I just think that any request that you want needs to be put through the portfolio holder, and she isn't here today to answer, you know, any queries in relation to the lottery. So perhaps you and Elaine can discuss what information you would like, and then you could have a discussion with the portfolio holder and see what's appropriate.
Yeah, thank you for that. Of course, it is really, Elaine, about numbers.
Yeah,
about numbers, you know, that because everything else follows the numbers.
Yeah,
but,
exactly.
There is a group, and they're working very hard to try and increase the interest. And hopefully the numbers will increase, but there will come a time, you know, without a doubt, when cabinet and the council will have to decide whether or not it should continue. But they've been given time, they've been given those extra months, and it's only fair to give them the chance to sort of try and turn it around a bit.
Well, we have got the leader here, haven't we? So hopefully, how many people actually were at the cabinet meeting that decided to carry it on? Because I understand that there are only now 5 people on the cabinet, and sometimes we don't get very many people actually at cabinet meetings. Perhaps the leader of the council could tell us why that is.
Can I make a point of order, Chair? Sorry, we seem to be going into a debate about the lottery when we're actually supposed to be debating the work plan.
Yeah.
And
No,
these meetings do, you know, it's a very meaty work plan, and I'd rather that the meeting.
Would you please be quiet? Would you please be quiet for a moment? The lottery is on the work plan. It's absolutely legitimate to raise the matter, but what isn't legitimate is to start asking the leader about who was at particular meetings when he's not necessarily going to know that, have that information in front of him. And if there are any more questions, please, about the work plan or the forward plan.
Councillor Cumbers, Councillor Orson is indicating that he would like to speak.
Yeah,
Joe. To invite him to do that.
Okay, thank you, Pat. I feel it's important that I do answer Elaine on the inference she made about members of the cabinet not turning up to meetings. There was one meeting where we only had 3 of us. One was on holiday and the other one was delayed at work. The one on holiday gave the formal notification beforehand. Otherwise, we've had full attendance at cabinet meetings. So a little bit disappointed Elaine hasn't checked the whole of the records, just picked up on one meeting and in public made those lapsus charge. Now, on reference to the lottery, obviously if I had warning, I could have checked the facts and brought that to you, but unfortunately, I simply don't have that detail in front of me, Pat. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you. Yes. So
that's good. Yeah.
So I shall be contacting the portfolio holder, and we'll have a monthly. Hope to have a monthly update. And as I say, just knowing the numbers, giving us the numbers, that doesn't cause a load of aggravation, and that's not difficult to provide. That information shouldn't interfere with anybody's job, but it will give us an idea that things are progressing in the way they should progress and not actually getting worse. And I trust you've all been looking at the forward plan to see what Cabinet will be doing over the next 3 months. No? Yeah. I think as scrutiny members, these are the things we really must be sort of keeping an eye on, because that's so much part of our job, sort of seeing what Cabinet is getting up to. And as well, I think as often as we can, we should try to go to Cabinet meetings. I don't know whether you've been to a Cabinet meeting, Elaine, but they're worth going to. Are there any more questions, Natasha?
No, there's no. Councillor Pearson has raised his hand.
Yes, you may. Yes, Alan. I hope you're better, by the way.
No, not quite. I'm still struggling. I've had weeks of treatment. It's not quite work yet. Fingers crossed. Just quickly, I think Rob could help here. Rob Child, who's pretty good at the budget and stuff. I think one of the issues we did speak at the cabinet was it's too simple to say that if we just get rid of it, because part of the allocation of the cost is the time of the officers, and if we take that allocation of cost of the officers away, it has to be made up somewhere else in our budget. So that, if that makes sense, so somewhere those officers have to be paid for or be made redundant. And I guess that was one of the issues that made the a bit more complex to really get to grips with. And I'm sure Rob will support me on that. I did speak to him about it, that it's a little bit more complex, and it's the allocation of the time of the officers, and they'd have to be reallocated or found work elsewhere. I think that was one of the issues we were looking at. Sorry to interrupt, I just thought it was an interesting factor that I didn't realise until I think Rob pointed it out.
Yeah, that's absolutely right, Alan. There's something like 20, off the top of my head, I haven't looked at it recently, but £28,000 of support costs, which obviously is a cost to the ratepayer, but that would have to be allocated unless staff were, given new areas of work. So that is the problem.
Thank you.
Can I just say, I think sometimes it's a little bit disingenuous to imply that officer time doesn't really cost anything, because officer time, whatever time they spent on the lottery, could have been spent doing something else.
Yeah.
That's what we're saying.
Yeah, it's an opportunity cost, and that is a cost to the taxpayers.
Yeah.
But even without that, there wasn't sufficient income to cover the other costs. But let's hope that it improves. But there'll come a time when the decision will be made whether or not it should continue. But certainly, I think it was a good thing that we raised, a good thing that we took to Cabinet. And I think that's something that scrutiny members should be looking for, things like that, which sort of slide through on the budget. I do encourage the members to look at the budget, because there are all sorts of odd items that are costing, and we've got absolutely every right to query whether that's justified. Thank you. Are we okay? Any more questions or comments about anything on the forward plan or our work plan?
Councillor Holmes is now indicating she'd like to speak.
It was just to say thank you, Pat, for that and putting it into the right context, I think. And now we'll go on to something else. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome, and you're right to be concerned, Elaine. You know, especially now when we've got to be watching every penny, and we're looking at making cuts everywhere. We've got to be very careful with everything.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Councillor Olsen just has his hand raised now as well. Councillor Cumbers.
Thank you, Mr. Leader.
Pat, thank you very much. Just a comment about the forward plan. You obviously are encouraging everyone to look at it. I mean, I'm often charged, as you well know, and officers are often charged, we don't know what's going on. We don't know what's going on, Leader. Well, it's often in the forward plan what's going on. All members have to do is read up on that. You're quite right. Encouraging all your members of scrutiny to read it, and also to go to cabinet meetings too. Yeah. All the information's there. It's very open.
Yeah, funnily enough, I was talking to a non-scrutiny member the other day, and I was explaining just that, when the person was grumbling about not knowing all this stuff going on, and people not knowing, and I pointed out that information is there. You've got to be looking at agendas, you've got to be reading the minutes, you've got to be looking at cabinet papers, and then you know what's going on. And then if you wish as well, you can go to meetings. But I'm disappointed that after all this time with a cabinet system, that people still believe that they don't know what's going on, when shame on them, they should know, because the information is there.
Councillor Cumbers, can I just confirm as well, just so that members, just to make them aware, that we do, we publish the cabinet forward plan every 2 weeks, and we send the link out every two weeks as well to members. So we are, you know, we do make sure that we give as much information as we can, and also when key decisions are made by cabinet, we always publish those within 2 working days, and that's sent out to all members as well.
Yeah, the information is there. I think sometimes, I know I feel sometimes I'm swamped with stuff, you know, so perhaps we should be a bit more careful and making sure that making certain that we read what should be read. Any more comments by anybody about items on the forward plan or our work plan?
No, there's no further hands raised, Councillor Cumbers.
In which case then, we'll go on to the executive scrutiny protocol. Is that right? That's right, isn't it? Item 5. The purpose of this protocol is to clarify the role of the scrutiny committee, provide a framework to define the relationship with the executive and senior leadership team, and define the functions and remit of the committee. The document isn't a statutory requirement, but it was identified in the government statutory guidance as a matter of good practice. I've worked with the leader and officers of the council in order to develop a document which I hope provides a framework for a collaborative, constructive and proactive approach to scrutiny executive relationship. The document is now presented for scrutiny members' feedback before it is finalised. And I look forward to receiving your comments. I would just like to say that one of the main things I hope will come out from this protocol will be other members of the council having some idea of what we're about, you know, because I'm quite sure that a lot of them have very little idea of just what we do. But would you like to say anything, Joe, about the protocol?
Yeah, well, thank you very much, Pat, and thank you for inviting me tonight for this item, and also a huge thanks to you, Pat, for all the work you've done on this. A tremendous amount of work. I've had a little bit to do with it, which was simply to say, well done, Pat. I haven't got anything else to add, really. So although you've been very generous in saying we share the responsibility of it, it is predominantly down to you, but you were kind enough to let me have a good read of it and a little bit of input here and there, but not a lot. But perhaps I could just say, as you always know, ever since we've adopted the cabinet leader model, I've always said that the cabinet is only as strong as the scrutiny committee, effectively. They do work it's a partnership in many ways, and yet there has to be sort of clear water between the two at the same time. So I'm not quite sure what I'm trying to say there, but I think you know where I'm coming from. There does have to be clear water, but they do work in partnership. There has to be a collaborative approach. I think that's the phrase that we want to use, and it has to be in a positive and a very proactive way. And you've achieved that, and obviously Bob's highlighted one already last summer, wasn't it, when the lottery was raised, but there's been other issues as well. And that's what scrutiny is all about. And but if you sort of look at the objectives on section 4, I think this is just outstanding. This is what it's all about. And if we just take each bullet point as they come, the one starting to enable scrutiny members, officers and cabinet members to fully understand their powers. That is an obvious thing, but we have been talking about, even to this day, near enough 18 months on, some people still don't seem to know about the forward plan. The information's there. And so we've still got some learning to do on that, and people still got to understand the scrutiny function. The next one, a positive framework to enable scrutiny to be proactive, evidence-based and outcome-focused. All in favour of that, and I'm sure all of you will be as well. And I think the third bullet point is probably the strongest one to me, which is to promote a culture in which there is mutual respect, trust and courtesy between the members of scrutiny and the cabinet members. That is massively important to the whole of the council, as we know. And scrutiny and cabinet can work together, and they have done to work together, and obviously regular dialogue. Well, we're there to talk to each other always. Pat, you and I know we often have a conversation on the phone. It tends to be on a Saturday morning for some strange reason. I'm not sure why, but it's Saturday morning, and that has to be encouraged, that conversation between us all the time. Openness, that goes without saying again. So all those points in the objectives, I fully support. So I'm here to listen to the scrutiny, Pat, for their comments. And again, thank you very much for all your hard work and all of the scrutiny committees, panels, hard work too. And maybe Cabinet's got things to learn, maybe Scrutiny's got things to learn, but this protocol is important, and it sort of gives us a baseline to work from, and that has to be good. It's a good foundation. So thank you very much. Over to you, Pat.
Yeah, and thank you, and thank you for your nice words, Joe. I think it will be, as I say, it should be good all round, and it always helps when we know what we're meant to be doing, and we're more likely to get things right then. So, and I shall keep saying you had a big part in this. So if it goes pear-shaped, I can blame you. Does anybody want to comment? Oh, I think we're looking for Adele now, aren't we?
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to point out a few changes and just to say thank you to the leader and the chair for so much work on this, because scrutiny is so critical to public trust and confidence in our decision making. So I think this is a great document and a great addition to the Constitution should it be approved by Council. So just in terms of calling of Cabinet decisions, so members will note at paragraph 7 of the protocol, it talks about the call-in procedures, and that doesn't align with our current call-in procedures, which have been approved by members. So in consultation with the chair and the leader, the proposal is that we just amend that section to just reflect the current call-in procedure rules within the Constitution, which is that 6 members, non-executive members, can call in a decision of the Cabinet and key decisions. And then also looking at paragraph 8, just in terms of access to information and information sharing, the Chair of Scrutiny has also requested that any information that members seek from officers is directed through her, just so that she can keep an eye on the work plan, can make sure it's aligning with corporate strategy, etc., and that she has, you know, an overarching view of how scrutiny is working, the information we're collecting. So those are the few things that we've been discussing this week in terms of amendments, and I'll hand back to the chair for wider debate from the membership. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Adele. Thank you for that. And I'm pleased, and I hadn't particularly noticed that any 6 non-exec members can bring or can ask for something to be called in. Is Elaine still here?
I am.
You are. Do you remember?
Yes,
yeah. Do you remember the 6 member motions, Elaine?
absolutely.
Yeah. And do you remember the Brentingby Dam?
I do.
Yeah. And that came from members, didn't it? And it was a good thing, and hopefully the members, and that isn't just scrutiny members, any non-exec members, if they want, they can take something, they can ask for something to be called in if there's enough of them. Now, any more comments or questions about
it? I have got one. Because we have these scrutiny, the cabinet member has, and I can't sort of find where I'm looking at. I'm not looking at it obviously right, and I've seen something and I can't find out where it is now. But when a cabinet member, for instance, our green policy, which seems to have been lacking so much, and they get various people onto that policy. It saddens me that the one person in the whole council who actually lectures on this all over the country could not be at the meeting with the cabinet member, was unable because was working. And I just wonder, and this is, if we're trying to scrutinise something, we're trying to scrutinise something that has actually happened. And so it seems sad to me that, and I'm glad the leader's here, that we didn't actually make sure that the person who knows more about it than anybody was not able to be there. I know I'm going on a bit, but this is how I feel, quite, you know.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Elaine. But I can't, you know, if he wasn't there, I presume he didn't want to be there.
He did. He was working, and because of the COVID thing, he has to be working at different times. I mean, sort of sometimes 8 o'clock in the morning to get students to 9 o'clock at night. So it's a really difficult thing for him. But he does know what he's talking about, obviously. You know, as I say, he's been lecturing all over the country.
Yeah, I mean, as you know, there's a task group going on, but
yeah, I know. This is what I mean. The task group. I mean, we feel that. I just feel that, as you say, scrutiny is scrutinising things. But if you can't get the people on the task group to be able to do the job and know what they're doing totally, then we're scrutinising something that probably We haven't got all the information.
Yeah, well, I mean,
You understand where I'm coming from?
yeah, Elaine, that councillor is on that task group.
Yes, he is. But as I say, he couldn't be there. Yeah.
You know, and not only if he can't attend meetings, he's always free to circulate information to members, to any members.
Well, he did circulate something. I know he did, because he said he had. But
well, he has in the past. I've not received anything from him.
Oh, right. Well, he said he was doing it. I don't know. He said he was definitely doing it.
But no,
Yeah.
you're right. He's got lots of valuable information which people should use.
Yeah.
But there's only so much we can do as a council.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, people, I can't attend meetings.
That's all. Sorry about that. I'll go mute.
Councillor Cumbers,
Yes.
Councillor Orson is indicating he'd like to speak.
Thank you, Joe. Yes, please.
Yeah, thank you very much. But yeah, you've already said it. Councillor Wood is on the task group. It's very difficult to get times to suit everyone to have a task group meeting. By the sounds of it, we need to have task group meetings at 10 o'clock at night to enable Councillor Wood's attendance. And maybe the other members might not be quite so keen on that, of course. And certainly the officers might not be, having worked all day. So he's on the task group. I'm not sure what else we can do, but like you said, Pat, he is free to circulate, he's free to question, but he's on the task group. What more can I do?
Yeah, I mean, and there's nothing to stop him sort of, I don't know, making his views known to Joe. I know he's not a Conservative member, but he's just as important as anybody else, and he's got all that knowledge. And if there's some way of him making us more aware, then perhaps that can happen. I don't know.
He did say that that's what he'd done to the committee. I understand. I haven't talked to him for several days anyway, but that's what he said, that he had tried to make points for the committee.
Which committee? Scrutiny?
The task group. Sorry, the task group that Alison was getting up. I understand.
She wasn't getting it up. She was continuing it. It used to be chaired by John Illingworth, and now it's chaired by Alison.
I know it is. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And she was trying to help her. That's all.
Well, that's between Phil and Alison, perhaps.
Yeah.
But he's very welcome. If he's got information which he wants members to know, I would please ask him to circulate it.
Yeah, I will. I'll do that. I'll do that.
Yeah. Pat, if we could just say it's an old saying, but you can take a horse to water. And that's about it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and of course, we are so impressed with his knowledge. But I would just like to hear a bit more of it. Back to the work plan and the forward plan. Any more questions? Any more hands up?
Sorry, Councillor Cumbers, we're doing the protocol, aren't we? Yeah, just to remind you, yeah, we're back to the protocol again.
Pardon.
That's okay. I just wanted to just so that members were aware. Councillor Pearson has his hand raised, and Councillor Child has his hand raised.
Yeah. We'll take the scrutiny member first, if we may. Bob?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I noticed the inclusion, I believe it's a new paragraph, where the portfolio holders attend on an annual basis to report on their budget. At the moment, I believe the portfolio holders come along for ad hoc items on the agenda. So I welcome that they'll attend on an annual basis, presumably separate meetings, to report on their budget and their performance. So I think that's a good item to have in.
Yeah.
And at least we'll know, how they're performing. I think Councillor Higgins does do a pro forma, which I've seen, but it'll be good to have it from all the cabinet members.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, Bob. But this isn't new. It already exists.
Oh, does it? I haven't seen any haven't seen anything on an annual basis.
Well, they all, as far as I recall, they all did their bits last year.
Did they? I beg your pardon then.
Alan will confirm in a minute, but as far as I know, that including Lee, and no, so this is just lifted out what's in the Constitution already, and
My mistake.
Yeah, it's just part of what we can expect anyway. Yeah, Alan, would you like? I can remember.
Yeah, sorry, Pat. Just quickly, that just the task group. It doesn't need to just rely on current members. I think the role of a task group is to request to bring expertise who can give different opinions. And the task groups I've been at the county council, where we can invite people from different persuasions, different expertise, and I think that's important to remember, that that's the role of a task group, is to have the ability to invite different types of expertise in. I think that's important to increase our knowledge.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have got the task group has got a long list of people and organisations that they do want to involve. But you're absolutely right, because we can't possibly know everything that needs to be known. You did your annual presentation, didn't you, last year, Alan, to Scrutiny?
Yes.
I thought you did, and you also did the police thing, didn't you?
Yes.
Yeah, that's another one. That's it is an annual thing, and yeah, what it is, we haven't got dates fixed yet, but the dates are being fixed for those annual.
Excellent.
Yeah, thanks. So we're still on the protocol.
Yep, Councillor Cumbers, just wanted to make you aware that Councillor Holmes looks like she's lost her connection, so we are attempting to get her back online, but just so that you're aware of that.
Oh, thank you. Oh, dear.
And Councillor Brown has his hand raised.
Yeah, Ronan, yes, please.
Yeah, Chair. Thank you, Chair. I've just found it a bit unbelievable that members don't realise that some of this stuff has existed, and councillors not on scrutiny, it's also the same. And we seem to go over the same old thing, is that we do have the protocols and processes in place. We do talk about it outside of this meeting. I think, you know, I welcome the improvements to this, to the document that will improve the relationships between the cabinet and the scrutiny committee. But what we're talking about here tonight, we seem to get into this same old, talking about side issues rather than the strategic way of driving the council forward. And if we keep doing that, we're not going to make any progress. So what I'm urging ourselves to do in this committee, and what the rest of the councillors and the backbenchers need to do, is to start looking at the bigger picture. Yeah, and stop going into the, you know, it's great talking about task groups, but what has that actually achieved us in the last half an hour that we've been talking about it? Not a lot. And I'm absolutely sick and tired of coming to meetings and spending about a third of them talking about nonsense. And I'm just going to leave it at that, because I'm to the stage where you do wonder what's scrutiny going to achieve if we keep going on like this. And it's not your fault, Pat. You're doing a fantastic job. We do lots together, but we can't keep getting sidetracked.
No, I can see where you're coming from. I think what happens sometimes, it's members want to let off steam, and they let off a bit of steam wherever they can. So that happens. So I think we've got to come to a decision, have we, on protocol?
We've got Councillor Douglas indicating she would like to speak before you move on.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Just want to say that I welcome this executive and scrutiny protocol paper. I think it represents a sound acknowledgement of the progress made by the council since the cabinet was formed, and the relations between the various council committees in general. I felt it reflects a high level of collaborative working, and the more discussions the better, really, especially during the times of COVID lockdown and the need for Zoom meetings. And some members have been expressing a need for more and more discussion. So I really think this is a great development, and I'm warming to it more and more, actually. And I think this document lays down some much needed ground rules that help clarify procedures and develop this relationship yet further between the Cabinet and Scrutiny Committee. And I'm sure that as members will continue to make sure our contributions remain objective and robust as always, such as at item 12, it talks about conduct and the need for members to prepare to ask searching questions of Cabinet members during the meetings, the scrutiny meetings as usual. So yeah, great stuff. So yes, I just want to say I like this. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeannie. Thank you. Yeah, I think it really helps us all. We've had COVID, but we're still 18 months. We've had a scrutiny committee, and we've had to get used to sort of so many different ways of looking at things. And we do have 2 recommendations, and we've got to vote on these, haven't we? Yeah, I'm happy to propose those. Of course, this isn't the end of the protocol. It has to go to council. That's right, Natasha, isn't it? Has to go to council for approval.
That's correct, Councillor Cumbers. It will form part of the Constitution, and that is a council function. So the final amendments from tonight, feedback from tonight's meeting, and any final amendments that yourself and Joe and the other members have will be put into the final document, and that will go forward to council.
That's fine. So I've moved the vote on the recommendations. If somebody would like to second that.
I'll second that, Pat.
Do we need a formal vote, Natasha?
If members indicate if they have any objections, then I'm happy with that. We're only really approving that you can make any final amendments before it goes to council.
Right, no objections, are there? No hands up?
No hands up, no.
Right, in which case then we'll go on to the item 7, the landlord housing policies, and the Director for Housing and Communities will provide an introduction.
Yeah, Pat, before you start, I'd just like to give my apologies. I've had quite a session at the dentist today, and the filling or the dressing has dropped out about 2 hours ago, and I'm in a little bit of grief at the moment.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Oh, it's just one of those things, but you know, that's the way it goes. So it's hurting, shall we say? Leave it at that. Yeah.
Oh well, I hope it's sorted soon.
I will do. I'll leave you in the good hands of Councillor Pearson.
Yes, and thank you for coming. Thanks, Alan.
So he's got a big smile on his face, so he's on form. So
toothache.
Okay then, guys. Cheers then.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
There's Andrew.
Thanks, Chair. Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. So, brief introduction to the report from me. I think we've mentioned before at Scrutiny Committee in terms of some weaknesses we've identified in the policy framework for the housing service. So, with this evening, really pleased to be able to present 5 policies to the first big step, I think, in filling some of those weaknesses in. Also, thank you, Chair, for agreeing to the managers Jodie Archer and Julie Martin to be able to join the meeting. That's much appreciated. They've certainly done the lion's share of the work, and I'm sure they will deal with the difficult questions that come up better than me as well. So we've got those 5 policies. Clearly a lot of ground to cover in a single meeting, so we'll split that down. There's the 2 policies in relation to voids and legal action that we'd really like to get Scrutiny's feedback on tonight. And we've also got the other 3 policies that, if Scrutiny would be kind enough to provide some comment by maybe the end of November, that would be very helpful and much appreciated as well. So all the policies are at a similar stage in terms of being very much drafts, reasonably sort of far on drafts, if I put it like that, but certainly not carved in stone. They've all been subject to quality impact assessments, and we'll get more detailed feedback from legal and finance colleagues as well. And of course, importantly, all will be taken to TFEC, the Tenants Forum Executive Committee. And in fact, some were taken to TFEC yesterday, and there's some suggested amendments in relation to voids. We'll certainly take into account as we're finalising the drafts. And the intention is to take the suite of policies to Cabinet in January for consideration, together with the new tenancy agreement that's currently out for consideration, and also a new tenants handbook. So in terms of the two specific policies for committee's consideration this evening, voids policy, perhaps if I take that first of all, and that's there's some issues there or suggested points for the discussion tabulated on page 2 of the report that's in the report pack. Clearly the task and finish group work that Scrutiny did on voids means a lot of these issues will be very familiar, but just to pick out some of the suggested points, overall that mission statement that's suggested, some of the key priorities, looking at undertaking major capital works during the void period. We also mentioned the golden goodbye to to give consideration to that in the future. That's a policy intention. We also developed a void quality standard, which is a detailed sort of relet standard, so that new tenants know what to expect, and something that we can work with the contractors to make sure they're delivering. In relation to the tenancy management, the legal action, there's some suggested points for discussion tabulated there in the report, and I've read quite a few legal action policies that start off describing how councils or landlords don't want to evict people and then describe how to do it. So I don't think we're doing that. I think I'm really pleased in terms of us creating a policy there that we can put before members for consideration that's got support written through it. It gives a framework. It accepts the fact that legal action sometimes is regrettably necessary, and when you do it, you have to do it correctly. But there is, it's a framework rather than an incentive to evict someone. That's an eviction is always a failure, but when it becomes necessary, we want to do it properly and according to policy. So that's a very brief introduction from me, Councillor Cumbers. So happy to take comments or questions through you, of course.
Yeah, thank you. Are there any questions or comments? A lot of stuff here because we're voids. I feel we've been living with voids for such a long time.
Councillor Wilkinson, Councillor Brown and Councillor Pearson all have their hands raised.
Thank you. Jacob.
Thanks, Pat. There's just a couple of questions that I had with regards to domestic violence. The policy says we're going to attempt to identify residents experiencing domestic violence in the earlier stages, etc. I just wondered what work is being done to identify those who are in need of that support and looking to flee domestic violence, either before or at the point of application for a council property. And also, lockdown, seeing a big increase in instances of domestic violence with partners effectively locked up with their abusers. What has the council been doing to support those people over the last 9 months now? That's probably for Andrew or for Alan.
Can I just add? Well, do my piece because I've just come from a meeting. Thanks for that, Jacob. I know Jodie will answer some of this. What we've been from the Community Safety Partnership, we're constantly looking and discussing abuse, and it's not pleasant, I've got to say, and there's all types. I think we'll find, in the document there, 1 in 4 of females will experience it in a lifetime, 1 in 6 male. Today, the last few weeks, we've been discussing a program called the Perpetrator Program, and there's some funds from the government linking in with the program with the rest of the county. So I've been working with some of the officers discussing this, how it best fits in for Melton. So the Perpetrator Program is quite a newish program. It's been trialled and reasonably successfully run in Birmingham, and it's basically looking at the perpetrator instead of the victim, and working with them for prevention, etc. Taking them on different programs. Some of it's individual counselling, some of it's group counselling. So at this point in time, we're looking at new programs and new initiatives. In particular, as you're aware, that one of the areas that has increased with the COVID lockdown has been abuse within the home. So we are looking, and I'm sure Jodie will have some information on some of the other work we've done in the past.
Did Andrew want to come in now, actually? Because Andrew's
Yes,
asked to speak just now.
Thank you, Councillor Cummers. So just a bit to expand there and support what Councillor Pearson said in relation to Councillor Wilkinson's question. So in terms of domestic abuse, and I think it's referred to actually in the report around the Chartered Institute of Housing Stamp It Out campaign that's been running for a couple of years now. That a lot of the issue or the barrier to dealing with domestic abuse is having colleagues that are and team members that are trained to spot it and confident in dealing with it and have the right skill set. And I know that we have a lot of colleagues, fortunately, within the council who are sensitive along those lines, whether it's a housing officer out and about with someone or a housing options officer, with a homelessness presentation. But certainly in terms of continuous improvement, subject to the approval of the policy, we'll be looking at rolling out and working with domestic abuse charities. There's a lot of really excellent training that can help sort of reinforce officers' skill sets in dealing with domestic abuse and understanding those telltale signs and being able to deal with them, appropriately and sympathetically. So it may be, Chair, if I hand over to Jodie Archer, who I'm sure will provide some additional comment in terms of current work in practice.
Thank you, Jodie.
Hi. So yeah, there's a massive commitment from me to ensure that we can recognise abuse. So as part of that, absolutely, we need to ensure that frontline staff are trained. They can undertake the risk assessments that's nationally provided for us. So that's in the policy around the DASH assessments that we need to be doing. And it's just about giving that know-how to our frontline team. So when they're out and about, if they see something that's not quite right, having that confidence to be able to come back to us and say, I didn't feel quite right with that. And actually, I need to undertake a risk assessment and there needs to be further referrals. So yeah, absolutely. The policy, I think, sets Melton in the right track to tackling domestic abuse and working with partners as well. So it's not our ownership, it's working with partners.
Could I just ask one question? I understand that people now are working with perpetrators. I mean, are these perpetrators are they changing their ways? Are they learning and stopping their behaviour?
Apparently, Pat, I've got the documentation. I'm quite happy to send it out. There was a programme run in Birmingham, and they did get some very favourable results. The perpetrator programme, better than expected. So the Home Office actually is supporting it nationwide. So I think there's 250,000 it's been available to Leicestershire. It's match funding, so each district will be asked to contribute. I think our contribute, Andrew can sort of slap me on the head if I'm wrong, but it's about £4,000, I think, which at this point in time isn't a lot of money, but it is a lot of money if it's only for one person from Malta. We're trying to say, we're just trying to ask, what does it cover? How is it delivered, particularly through this COVID period of time? So apparently the Home Office likes it. They're recommending it. So we're in the process of looking at it. Most probably we'll go with it. We just asked some pertinent questions. But apparently, yes, it does have some success rate, focusing on targeting the perpetrator to find out why, what are the circumstances, what is the mental issues. And as I said before, there is group and individual counselling. And it is over a period of time. It's not sure, 6 to 8 months or a year, and then it's followed through. So potentially we're part of the programme, but it does seem to have a greater impact on than other programmes, Pat.
Oh, that's good. Thank you. Thank you. Are there any more comments on this particular item? The domestic violence.
Councillor Wilkinson, Councillor Brown and Councillor Child.
Yeah, wasn't Ronan? Oh, you're all speaking on this item?
Yes, you're quite right. It was Councillor Brown first, and then it's Councillor Child, and then it's Councillor Wilkinson.
Right, thank you. And
Order.
Ronan, did you want to speak then?
I don't want to speak on domestic violence, no.
No, anybody else? Does Rob want to speak on?
No, I don't want to say anything on the domestic abuse.
Right, okay then. So we go back to Ronan.
Yeah, okay. I do have some comments on adaptations and right to buy, but if it's okay, I'll send those separately into the officers as per the request of Andrew, if that's okay. Just really, I'll start off with tenancy management. First of all, it's actually good to see some policies written down that that you can follow, etc. So that's positive. Just a comment around sort of formats and thing in relation to how easy it reads is, I think might be interesting. The question be is that for how going forward, how you track it. Maybe putting in stuff like who the author is of the document, the date it was published, the date it's going to be reviewed, and Andy, you might be able to tell me how we're going to track it, because I know what these processes are like. Is that you set up these documents, the next thing 3 years later somebody comes in and audits you and tells you, wait a minute, we're out of date, and you're scratching your head and saying, damn, I should have sorted that out. So just, I'm sure you're thinking of it, but it's just popped out to me as being a little bit obvious. On the tenancy management, that's all good. In point 3, just looking at again around to preventative and the appropriate action being taken is, I'd like to see that there's some mention to the Equality Act 2010, Part 4, and I would also hope that especially when it involves vulnerable people, that we're undertaking an equality assessment to ensure that the action we're taking is proportionate and the support and stuff in that there. That doesn't seem to run through. I think we do all sorts of other assessments, so that will be good to see, because I think the courts you'll see that more and more. That'll be a requirement of the courts at the moment, especially when it comes to injunctions, etc. In part 5, injunctions, just really like to see that area enhanced with the use of injunctions, no notice injunctions, etc. Interim injunctions can be very, very useful to the prevention of having to go for possession, or can be a good tool prior to possession proceedings to actually, with powers of arrest, etc., to deal with that. And also, if possible, we could refer to exclusion orders as well in the injunctions. Yeah. So if somebody's causing problems, etc., the fact that you've got your own in-house legal team should mean that really the cost of an injunction is really just your court cost, unless you have to go to trial, which would be after a no notice injunction, etc. ASB on point 6, maybe if we could just refer a little bit about acceptable behaviour contracts and all the proactive work I know that you do to stop all of that happening. Number 7, when we're looking at the evictions, etc. Point 7, sorry, just making sure that if somebody is vulnerable, or we know they have a mental health issue or a learning disability, or have some other vulnerability around the make crime or something like that, that if appropriate, they notify an adult social care, mental health services, etc. Around that, and ensuring in the document that we are going to ensure that we're giving the individuals the appropriate advice to go and seek their own legal advice. Yeah, I think that needs to come across. It's all right taking action against people, but an individual does have the right to legal advice, etc. Other than that, the other question I would have is, I presume that there's going to be a process that sits behind this, that staff will be able to follow, etc., and will be clear. And the other question is in relation to the ICT. I presume from the previous conversations we had when we did the review into housing services that this will be mapped through your NorthGate system and flow, and make it easy for staff to operate, and it just won't be a policy that people have to sort of navigate a bit a bit plainly. So I'll just stop there. That's my comments on the tenants match. But overall, really good to see, and hopefully those comments can be taken on board.
Thank you, Ronan. Thank you.
Yeah.
Rob, did you want to speak?
Yes, I wanted to say something on the voids. Is it the appropriate time?
Who am I talking? Is it Bob who's talking?
Yes, yes.
Oh, I beg your pardon. Yeah. What, on the voids, you want to speak?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
That's
Sorry.
Yeah, I'd like to see included in there. I think it is a good document, but a performance indicator for the number of days a property is empty, because we want to get the number of days down as proven by the task and finish group. So I'd like to see that inserted. You state at 4.3.2 a recharge will be raised for removal of goods and clearance of gardens. My experience in finance is that it was called a rechargeable works, which is the same thing, is that very rarely did the tenant leaving the property pay up, and it was a case of having to chase it through the courts, and in the end the majority of it was written off. So I'll be interested to get an answer on that. And thirdly, at 4.3, the goodbye payment, what sort of value are you looking there to pay a tenant for the cleanliness of the property? And finally, at 5.1, to carry out all this work, is it achievable with the manpower we've got to actually do A to H? It seems an awful lot to do in a short time. Could I have a comment on that, please?
Andrew, will you answer for that then?
Yeah, absolutely. And just in relation to the comments Councillor Brown made earlier, yeah, welcome those, and we'll incorporate the suggestions. In relation to the void policy, yeah, I think we do have reference, maybe it's not explicit enough in the policy, to void turnaround times being reported. So that's the days that properties are empty. So yeah, we'll make sure that that's clearer. Rechargeable repairs or the rechargeable works, yeah, I absolutely agree. Notoriously difficult to recover, and a recovery rate of 10% on former tenant debt is usually doing pretty well. Doesn't stop us raising it. It's a debt to the council that's lawfully due, so we will raise it and pursue it. Maybe of interest to Scrutiny as well that the new tenancy agreement that's currently out for consultation has a new clause, or new to Melton, a new clause where we can make former tenant debt a condition, repayment of that, a condition of their new tenancy. So that would hope that would boost the income collected from former tenants, because people do have a habit of coming back around to us, as it were. The goodbye agreement, I think that's something that we previously discussed at Scrutiny, and we're leaving that with TFEC to do some investigation of that. I think typically it's a couple of £100, would be the sort of the golden goodbye. It's a typical fee, but it'd be interesting what TFEC comes back with, because those have moved on. And the void quality standard at 5.1. That's
achievable.
My take, Councillor, is that's quite a basic standard, to be honest.
Right.
I'd be really disappointed if we can't do better than that, but right. I don't want to overcommit. It's under promise and over deliver as far as I'm concerned in terms of void. So 5.1, I'm comfortable with it. Happy to take Councillor Cumbers, maybe through you, if I could bring Julie Martin in to make a comment in terms of that quality standard. That may be helpful just to expand a little bit.
Thank you. Julie.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, certainly the points at 5.1 we'd consider to be a standard relet, and contractors should be fairly well versed in turning those around. Obviously, where we've got more, there are larger works required, decent home standards and things like that. They obviously take a bit longer, but certainly in terms of those basic checks that are contained there at 5.1, most contractors should be able to turn those round fairly quickly. They're standard routine items you'd expect to see on a void.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you, thank you. I think we've got Jacob waiting, have we, Natasha?
Yes, that's correct. It's Jacob Wilkinson next.
It's Jacob next, right?
Yeah, correct.
Thank you, Chair. Just on the to Andrew, probably on the right to buy policy, on item 4, it says right to buy sales and business planning. There are lots of X's for values, which I know this is a draft at this stage, but lots of X's for values like right to buy sales are assumed to be at X per year from 1920. In the financial year 18-19, a total of X council properties were sold. What are those figures? Are you able to tell us that this evening, or do we have to wait for this to go to full council?
Not able to share those figures this evening. That's waiting for finance colleague input, and partly for us to look at the current work that's going on remodelling the housing revenue account business plan. So happy to share those as soon as I have them, because those will be going in the next edition of the draft.
Okay.
Thank you, Jacob. Anybody else, Natasha?
Yes, we've got Councillor Douglas and Councillor Bindloss.
Right, Jeannie?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just building on something that Councillor Brown was saying about the monitoring and reviewing and revising, because this is a new paper and a lot of these policies are very, very new, very, very fresh, I thought I've noticed that the aids and adaptations have no review mention at all within their policy. Neither does the right to buy. I couldn't see them. Maybe they're there, but I couldn't see them. I kept looking and looking to find them. Now, the others do have revisions. Tenancy management in 2 years, domestic abuse in 3 years, and voids every 4 years. I just felt that because these are new papers, that the next year will be kind of quite important as they are put into practice and observed working or not working, and are sure that revisions may need to be made sooner rather than later, rather than waiting 4 years or 3 years. So as Councillor Brown said, dates of the officer, writing them, the name of the officer, but maybe there could be more intensive scrutiny over this next year and revisions over the next year, rather than waiting such a long time. And with those two that haven't got any revisions written in, to just kind of add something about the revisions anyway, because I'm sure it will be the goalpost will be moving all the time initially in the first few years in particular. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeannie. Yeah, who'd like to? Andrew, would you like to?
Yes, just to come back to Councillor Douglas there. Yeah, really good spot. I think certainly we need to get that rationalised in terms of the review timetable, and yeah, we will certainly incorporate that with something sensible prior to it going to cabinet.
Yes, thank you, Andrew.
Thanks. Could I just ask a question? People living in renting privately, they usually have to pay a deposit up front, don't they? And that usually sort of encourages people to leave the property in good order. We don't ask for deposits, do we, on council dwellings? Or do we?
No, Councillor Cumbers, we don't know. No.
Do any councils? Because even if they haven't got it immediately, they could almost sort of save up for it, couldn't they?
Yeah, I think I'm not aware of any council that does. I think I'm not sure that it's something that's explicitly prohibited, but it's generally inconsistent with social housing, right, because you're imposing an additional financial burden on your incoming tenant, and I guess for us, I mean, if a tenant was able to generate or have a month's deposit available, in terms of their financial circumstances, I'd rather they had that in a credit union or in a bank, or, you know, rather than sitting with us, because we can't offer interest. So it would be, in that sense, dead money. But it's an interesting point. I'm happy to check that out further.
Yeah, and my point is, you know, if they're going to gain some money, they're more likely to leave the place tidy. But there we are. I don't know whether Ronan, you don't with your association, you don't.
We're lucky to get the rent 4 weeks later. I think the other thing you can do, Andrew, isn't it? Most people will try and get rent in advance. That's usually in the tenancy agreement as well, isn't it? You try, the tenancy agreement will say 4 weeks in advance, and that's usually quite a burden for somebody who's living in social housing, to be honest.
Yeah. Councillor Bindloss.
Thank you, Chair. This is kind of going back to voids. So the voids, or the empty properties that have got special adaptations, do we count those as a general empty property, a general void? Or, because if we do, I'm assuming that we actually we have their special needs, people with special needs, special requirements, and it's probably skewing the figures slightly if we're having to hold them back. And you know, as if they're just part of a general figure, it makes the general figure look high, when in actual fact, they're a property that have that are more specialist, shall we say?
Yeah, interesting point, actually. And we've got the commitment in the policy to leave existing disabled adaptations in place because they're so expensive to do in the first place. It's actually, I think, the reverse, in the sense that we've usually got far more demand for properties with adaptations than we have the voids coming back to satisfy that. And it's, you know, there's a subtlety around that, because if you've got a tenant that needs specialist housing and adaptation work done to their property, they're far less likely to move because it meets their needs, and it meets their needs so well, rather than just in general needs housing, where you can swap one 2-bed house for another, and that there's no real implication outside that. So we are doing, as part of the longer term sort of asset management strategy, starting to think in terms of our stock, the sort of property sizes, the levels of disabled adaptation within the stock, and trying to, you know, understanding what our actual demand for the different types of housing is. So that will help us become more sophisticated longer term, making sure we've got the right homes that we need for the residents of Melton. So it's not really, I think, the current Melton experience that we've got properties with adaptations looking for people to fill them. It's the other way around.
Okay, thank you.
That's interesting. Any more hands up? Oh, Councillor Pearson, I was coming to you next anyway.
Yeah, just also, Rob, just to add to your question, is that hopefully when we do start build and we get all your support, which I think we will be doing in the future, the modern technology and housing, that you actually make that housing livable for a long time. So an example is rooms downstairs that can be converted from maybe a storeroom to a wet room, so people can stay downstairs. So I think you're right what you're saying, but hopefully in the future, as we develop our properties, that the houses will be fit for everybody, and they can grow old in them and live in them for a long time. And fingers crossed that we can do that.
Thank you, Alan. Did you want to say anything more about any of these documents, Alan?
Yeah, I think Ronan started off with the ball running. At least we've got some meaty documents. Yeah. I think we're all aware that they've just been, that they're new. We're still in the process of developing. I think everybody's aware they're draft, and this is why it's important for Scrutiny to scrutinise them, look at them, challenge them, question them. I think you'll find this department very, very transparent. We're trying to do the best. And I'll be quiet again, hands up here. When we started digging down, we over the past few years, a lot of these areas have been neglected. This is now putting us, on the front foot. It's important to remember the main issue is our tenants, is we're giving them a safe place to live, being fair and transparent with them, communicating with them, doing our best. But at the same time, we've also got to look after our property, and we manage expectations and also be a good but also fair and strong landlord. And if we can get to that state, and we are on the front foot getting there, I don't know how long it's going to take, but we will then have some very good structures and properties for our tenants to live in comfortably and safe, and that's what I want.
Yeah, thanks, Alan. Yeah, I'm a great believer in policies anyway. It helps people know where they stand. Any more comments or?
I just want Pat. I just wanted to ask a question on the voids policy. Yeah. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine. Sorry. Yep.
Yep. Just on that, there, we obviously have a policy, and the policy cuts across a number of different teams. So property, housing management, allocations or housing options, whatever way you call it. Yeah. Where are we with building the process into the ICT system, so that basically each process is completed and then tells the next team what to do? That was one of the stipulations that we put into the improvement plan last January. Just wanted to know where we are with that, and whether the Northgate system is capable of doing that. And I appreciate that these ICT systems, they're not easy to construct and build and format, but if you're going to get it right, where things don't fall down through the cracks, as we were commenting, Andrew, the other day, you need something that's a bit more robust than just on pieces of paper, emails, and people's heads.
Yeah, absolutely. Certainly the Northgate project, work in progress, I think is the best way of describing that. There is still a lot to do in terms of the ambition of workflows, etc. on the system. Really, we're still at the building block stage in terms of property attributes, and making sure that our stock condition elements are accurate to inform our void works and the letting, etc. So very much work in progress, but it is it is progress. I'd hesitate to give a time scale for us to have an all singing, all dancing void process on Northgate.
You won't get there, I can reassure you.
Well,
if you can get 80% there, you'll be doing well.
Yeah, and what's key to us, I think, is the next two big steps. So getting those property elements sorted, and making sure that we can report accurately in terms of notices, and where in the void stage properties are sitting. It is always a challenge with void management, because you've potentially got at least 3 teams, and of course we've got the contractor element to throw into that as well. And inevitably everyone uses slightly different systems in slightly different ways. So we will get there, but very much a work in progress. We haven't lost sight of that strategically, though.
No bother. That's great. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew. Any more comments or questions? No, we have some recommendations. We don't need a formal vote, do we, Natasha?
No, that's great. If you just propose and second, because it is just to note and comment.
Well, I'm happy to propose.
I'll second it.
And we presume that's carried. Nobody's objected, have they? Thank you very much for, Andrew, all your hard work and the hard work of you and your team with all these policies. And they're really good. Such a lot of effort has gone into them.
Thank you, Councillor Canvas.
Yeah, that's absolutely great. So now we move on to item 8, updates. And I sent out and I emailed out an update which included just some of the, just to give a taste really, some of the things that both groups have been doing. So if there are any questions or comments, happy to hear them. Judy. Sorry. Nobody got anything to say?
No.
No. Oh, Councillor Brown's just indicating he would like to speak.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, Pat. I just thought you were asking us to read. No, I think just from my point of view is that yeah, I think there's been a lot of hard work done with the task and finish groups here, and you know, I think by our next meeting we'll be in a good position to put the certainly draft recommendations forward, and hopefully we'll all have time to have discussed those with officers, etc. In relation to the work myself and Chris has done, I think it's pretty much laid out there, but it's also as well, I think what we need to be mindful of is that we've gone into this second so-called partial lockdown, as I'll call it. It's not the same as the first one, but we may not know the complete impact upon the severity of the consequences of COVID until we start coming out into the new year, and that might be beyond that. Yep. So, you know, I think I have been quite clear, and Chris has been quite clear in our response is around homelessness, is that, yeah, we can maybe see what might be needed. We can maybe see what the pattern or what the consequences might and what interventions might be needed. But at the moment, it's very much early days, and you know, there's not a lot of people. The system, the fact that the courts aren't evicting, the fact that if you're in tier 2 and above, there's nobody going to be evicted, there's no warrants going to be executed. Landlords are probably still getting money through people being furloughed and people being receiving universal credit, maybe self-employment payments. But it's when that ceases is going to be the key bit. And I just want to stress that caveat is that, and I think it'd be unfair for us to stipulate hard and fast stuff on the officers when they may have to adjust and be a little bit more agile later on in 2021 when the environment looks a lot different, and none of us have got a crystal ball really to know what that's like. So I just want to put that caveat on it. But I think we're in a good position, really good information from the officers, and we've got a good handle on the national picture, the regional picture, and there's certainly good ideas going forward. And thank you, Pat, for your support and all of that as well.
Thank you, Ronan. Yes, I too have been pleased with the response from the council. The information has been requested, always sort of forthcoming. I was a bit disappointed with the DWP. I'm surprised really that they don't have more information locally than apparently they do. I couldn't get any sort of breakdown, proper breakdown of jobs which had disappeared, nor could I get a breakdown of whether they were male or female, full-time or part-time. But it could be that the information is around, it's just that I couldn't find it. But certainly we've all been so busy sort of digging out information, researching. It takes up we've all been doing that. And eventually I think we'll be able to make some good recommendations. But no, I think we've all worked hard, and that this is just a bit of what we've been doing. And of course you'll have seen Rob's, I call it Rob's survey, very, very well thought out. And I know how much work that took. You know, it really did to get those questions right.
Can I just say a few things, Chair?
Yes, please.
Yeah, as Roland said, you know, it's a lot of hard work involved in this, and I'd like to thank everybody on the task force, and of course Natasha, all her team, comms, for all their help in actually getting out this survey. We've now, I hope, looking towards a second survey, and we've been building and we're underpinning some good points that we'll be able to, and we'll be able to offer some, you know, some good evaluation, I think, at the end of it. But it takes a lot of time to do this, and we've got to get everything in before we can actually do this. My kind of issue at the moment, and it kind of really struck me today, as I sat having a cup of coffee with Jean this morning, was that we were sitting there in Montero Lounge having a drink, and it suddenly occurred that the next time I go in there, the Christmas decorations will be out, because all these guys are going to have to transition from where they are right now to a sudden lockdown, and then they're going to come back on the 2nd of December, and it's on just before Christmas. We need to make sure that we can put our heads together if we can, and come up with some ideas that's going to enable them, and of course they'll do this themselves, but to be able to maximise that very, very small window that they're going to have, to be able to get some sales done, basically. You know, I mean, they would naturally, over the next 3 or 4 weeks, it would have been, for a lot of the smaller shops, it would have been their busiest period of time. And that's not going to be there. So we really need to look at, as a task force, how can we offer that? And that's a changing thing. And I think I said this a couple of months back, that one of the issues that we were going to have, all of us, was that this is a very, very fluid problem that we have at the moment, and we need to be able to react to that. So that's something certainly that I'm considering at the moment. But I think that the value that we're going to hopefully have at the end of this, from the surveys that we're doing, and the discussions that we're having now on this, is something that I'm sure on both people and place will be very valuable, and we'll be able to really offer some constructive suggestions as a way forward. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. Because we're hoping that the beginning of December things will be better, but who can tell?
Well, that's always a problem, isn't it? We don't know, but I think we have to aim for that. And it was. I don't know if any of you guys went into town on Sunday when the craft fair was on, but I said to Pat, it was so nice to see all that enthusiasm there, and lots and lots of people, getting involved in that. But will we be okay for the 2nd? I sincerely hope we will be, and I think we have to aim for that one way or another, and hope that that's going to be something, or a key point as far as the shops in town are concerned, and of course the residents themselves. I mean, there's obviously going to be a lot of residents, or a number of residents, that are going to have problems, that are actually going to be without work and without money, and an extremely stressful period of time, and we obviously need to be there to offer them help as well.
Yeah. Any other comments?
Yeah, sorry, Pat. I did put my hand up, but it doesn't come on screen on mine. I don't know why. Just in response to Rob, I think. I think you have to sort of look at, also work through the bid. The bid generates quite a bit of money, got quite a lot of money in the bank, and I do feel we need to. I get a lot of good ideas being put forward to the bid, and they didn't really come to fruition. I just think sometimes we've got to be careful about overlapping and trying to do other people's jobs for them. The bid's role.
I've spoken quite frequently to the bid.
Yeah.
And I take on board exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't for 1 minute kind of like try and overlap things, because that would be pointless. But no, I mean, I've kept in contact with the bid this week, last week, and so on and so forth. So yeah, I'm very aware of what they're doing, and I wouldn't want to try and replicate. What I would like to try and do is just be able to be there to offer support where we can.
Yeah, I understand that. I guess I'm just trying to say, yeah, let's generate our ideas to the bid, and hopefully they'll listen to us. But anyway, that's what I'd like to think we could do. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that, Alan. Yeah, I very much sort of agree with that. There's, I don't know, when COVID struck, I assumed somehow that the bid would jump in and lead. But to be honest, I was a bit disappointed that they didn't appear to. But maybe they're backing their ideas up a bit. And we will, having a task and finish, look at the bid a bit later on in this year. So so hopefully, because a lot of us, we don't know what's going on with the bid, but that we will sort of look at that at sometime in the future. Any more thoughts or comments about, or questions about?
Yes, Pat.
We've got Councillor Child, Councillor Fisher as well, waiting to speak.
Bob and then Chris.
Yes, Pat. I'd just like to thank Andrew, and if he could pass his thanks on to the team. On the debt recovery and summonses, there's no summonses being commenced at the present time, and debt recovery has only just started the reminder letters. So it's going to be well into 2021 till we really see the impact of the arrears on council tax and other areas. But thank you anyway for the information, Andrew, that your team has supplied.
Chris. Councillor Fisher.
Yeah, the same with me, really. I wanted to thank Andrew and the team for all the information they provided so far that we've asked for. And just to echo really what Ronan said, that, you know, we are working on data that we've presented with now. And as we're all probably going to know, over the next 6 months to a year, homelessness is inevitably going to increase after lockdown, furlough ends. So I think sadly the worst is yet to come, but we can only work with what we've got at the moment and put recommendations forward for what we're seeing at the moment. That was all.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. Yeah, I mean, we do know that unemployment is bad now, but is expected to double or triple by the end of the year. So that can't be good. But we can always be positive. And hope.
That's right. Yeah.
Any more hands raised, Natasha?
Councillor Pearson has his hand raised, but
oh yeah, I can see he's waving. Yeah,
I wasn't sure if it was from the previous time.
Yeah, no. I'd just like just a quick story, Pat, for all the members here. I got involved with a homeless person that's in Melton who's camping. He's an ex-soldier. I won't mention names. I work with the Danny O'Brien. He's the president of the British Legion. So we did contact the gentleman. Officers gave him the information. I personally went to see him, went to the council with him, filled the forms in, organised bed and breakfast, and he refused it in the end, just to let you know. So there was definitely some mental health issues we're trying to help him with. We put him in, tried to get him involved with the Covenant and some support packages. We're still working with the gentleman, but it sometimes shows you the complexities we're dealing with. It's not as straightforward as just giving them bed and breakfast. So if you do get any feedback, can I say from experience from that, I got involved. The officers acted really well. They provided information. They were very supportive. There was a case of you can take a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. So by getting involved, I felt very confident as a council we were trying to do the right thing and provide the right resources. So I just thought I'd share that little bit of information with the scrutiny group that there is a structure there. We are trying to do our best. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks. I think that the mental health issues, that's the key, isn't it? You know, and a lot of homeless have mental health issues. So all we can do is what we can do. But I'm glad we've got the caring officers that I believe we do have. They want to do the right thing. Any more questions or comments?
No, there's no further hands raised.
Right, and there's no urgent business then. And in which case, at about 8:10, we'll draw a close to the meeting, or nearly. Thanks to you all for coming. Thanks to you all for all your hard work. Thanks to Natasha and her team for supporting us. And I know they've had lots of extra work to cope with new stuff that's coming out from the government. But I'd like to say a special thank you as well to Adele. Now, Adele, of course, is leaving us soon. And it was Adele who launched us into Scrutiny. And because we were green, we were naive, we knew nothing about it, or most of us didn't. And Adele sort of set us off on the straight and narrow, I think. So thanks a lot for all your help, Adele, and wish you lots of luck in the future.
Thank you, Pat.
You must come back and visit us sometime.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a pleasure working with Scrutiny and getting it off on the right foot. And I know, Pat, that you're really passionate, as is Natasha, in taking it forward. So thank you.
Yeah. And and thanks the officers for all their hard work, because life isn't easy at the moment. So Natasha, could I have a word with you when the meeting is finished?
Councillor Cummins, I'll give you a call if that's okay, because I have to close the meeting down.
That's fine. That's fine. So stay safe and see you all soon. Thanks a lot.